intimidating fast bowlers. And a cricket journo not afraid to take the strike.
Oh, how about it?
This is the Fast and the Curious. Mitchell Johnson and Bonnie Rayner, your home for all forms of summer's game.
It's full, it's down the ground, it'll be at least one. Saini, he's got an injury with the groin. It goes as far as the fence. India, incredible.
Yeah, congratulations to Team India. Outstanding performance. They deserve this. They deserve everyone to be out in the middle of the GABBA right now and just take in what it's all about to win a test match at the GABBA and to win a test series in Australia. Depleted team, Australia at full strength. Congratulations, Ajinkya Rahane.
That pretty much sums it up in a nutshell. Yesterday was one of the most famous victories we will ever see on Australian soil. Hello and welcome to the Fast and the Curious podcast. We're brought to you by Tab Touch. Make the most of summer. Gamble responsibly. For gamblers' help, call 1-800-858-858. Mitchell Johnson, for a second week in a row, you're not curious, you're furious.
I'm always furious. You're making me look bad.
Playing your role, angry fast bowler.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, what an incredible test match. What an incredible test series. I think I just look at that first test match and Australia bowling out India for 36 in that second innings, and sort of I guess I thought at the same time it was going to be Australia.
Because sometimes to bounce back from such a demoralising loss, it's not always about the skill execution, it's about the mental side of it. What we've seen from India more than anything is their resilience.
Well, yeah, they just proved that, yeah. I mean, they lost Virat Kohli after that first test match, and there's been all the talk about, they need Virat in the team. But I always had the thought of they've got a strong batting lineup. And Rohit Sharma coming in later in the series as well. And we've seen a standout performance from Shubman Gill, who I actually played a little bit with in the IPL as well, and was thoroughly impressed with him and thought he's going to do well here in Australia when he gets his chance, and he proved that. There was also so many different changes in their team, and they just showed so much grit. It's normally the grit that you see from an Australian team. So, yeah, look, they're thoroughly impressive, and they're going to be very tough over the next couple of years, I feel. They're going to compete, they're going to show that grit, and they're going to be a really tough team to beat.
Well, what we've seen is when players like Jasprit Bumrah, Umesh Yadav, when any of their, say, more experienced players are moved on, there's absolutely no doubting their squad depth now, given they were forced to use 20 players in this series. When I think, did we only make 2 changes? Joe Burns going out, Will Bukovsky and Marcus Harris, I think, were our only 2 changes across the entire series. They had to use 20 players. And obviously their attack for the GABBA test had 4 test matches of experience between 5 bowlers. Mohammad Siraj led the attack and he debuted on Boxing Day. It's just unfathomable.
It just goes to show how strong the IPL is for me, because a lot of these players playing IPL gaining experience by playing against the best international players around the world. Even though it is the shortest form of the game, it's still experience. They're coming up against the best bowlers and the best batsmen, so they're learning. And when they get their opportunity, they're fighting for a spot. They want to stay there. They don't want to give up that spot. So that's how I feel the Australian team should be playing as well. We've seen that in the past, and like I said, it was just impressive at how they just kept fighting hard. And I mean, Shardul coming in was another guy that I've played some IPL cricket with, and he's been a guy that I've always been impressed with when being in India. He always works hard. He wants to learn. He's always around. He was like a little brother to me as well in some ways. He's like, lurking around you and trying to learn as much as he can. So they're all like that. They want to be better cricketers. And you look at the size of the population. That's another thing that I saw written, I think it was this morning, the population over there they've got a massive population, and a lot of people do play cricket over there and want to play for their country, but only 11 players can be out there in the middle. So any chance they get, they're giving it their all. So you could see that with that bowling attack. I think, so was it Saini? Yep. Saini came back. He had that little groin injury. and he still came out in that
Battered,
second. Yeah,
came out in the second innings.
Still had a crack. So,
Pajaro gets hit 14 times.
oh my God,
No worries.
Yep. It's just incredible.
1.366 billion people in India. That's absolutely no excuse. They simply wanted it more. They had so much more hunger and such grit and desire to win. And I think it's really nice. We know over in India and in England, countries like that with more dense populations are doing it really tough at the moment in COVID, in lockdown, and just seeing the social media world light up and how much joy this series brought despite the pain the Australian team is feeling today. Justin Langer has preached all summer we needed to go to England to get for the health and the economy of the game to get the show back on the road. This Test cricket is well and truly alive, and that series is one like we'll never see before.
Oh, exactly. And it's series like that that really make Test cricket so good to watch, and that's why I loved playing the game, and that's why it's still my favourite game to watch, because there's so many ups and downs involved in it. You see so many different performances, so many players coming in and out like we have in this series, and it is really exciting to watch. And I think you're saying here in the studio, in the newsrooms, that the TVs were all on and everyone's getting right behind it. So even in Australia, where it's probably not as popular as India, it's still a popular sport, but
it's behind
India,
footy here, isn't it? Whereas India, it's an obsession.
It's an obsession.
Way of
So
life.
it is good to put that smile on people's faces in the hard times.
Yeah, and the ratings on Channel 7 were in the average across the fourth test was 727,000 viewers, which is up 11% on the 2018-19 series when we were missing our two best players. So that's a credit
amazing
to the show they put on. Now, it's not a red kookaburra, but this week we've got a white brand new kookaburra to give away, signed by Mitchell Johnson, a bit similar to the one you took 3 for 3 with at the Wacker in BBL 06. So that'll be awesome for somebody. We'll have a code word later on in the episode, so stay tuned for that. You don't want to miss out on your chance to win that. Mitchell Johnson, your Instagram last night, you had a bee in your bonnet. You were up and about. I'm eager to tap into it. You had a good social media rant. What was the toughest part to swallow for you from that test match? Keep in mind we have a time limit.
The toughest. I just think it was the. I don't know. There was a few things. I just think it was the lack of fight more than anything, and from the Australians. I mean, it wasn't like they weren't trying, but it was so noticeable how India were really having a big dip. And I even said it, I was thinking it on the second day of that test match at the GABBA, and even in the Sydney test match, I just thought that India just wanted it more. So that's just all I want to see from the Australian guys. I just want them to see them fight and win those big moments. Where, they're not making the scores that they need to. It's like Labuschagne not going on with his score. Just the little things that just need to click for them. And, they haven't played. Well, I can't make it an excuse because India haven't played as much either, Test cricket, but it has been an odd sort of 12 to 13, 14 months or whatever, and not much has been going on in the cricket world, but when you get your chance, you've got to go out there and you've got to want it.
I think to pay a bit of credit where credit's due, Pat Cummins absolutely bowled his heart out. 162 overs for the series, around 24 overs yesterday, and that was the single most by an Australian seamer on day 5 since 2006. So as a team, absolutely. As a squad, India wanted it more, but I think someone like Pat Cummins, you can't fault, man of the series, you cannot fault how hard he tried.
Well, exactly, and full credit to him for what he's done for the team, and that's what the whole team needed to do.
He needed more support.
It was more support, and that's when you do win the big moments, or those moments that you really do need to win. And India, you can look at their whole squad, and everyone sort of played their part, I guess. There's not too many real standouts from the Indian team, but they all just gelled together and played for each other. And that's just what Australia needs to do. So I'm be interested to see what happens after this. There's a lot of talk about Tim Payne and his captaincy, and people want him to go, and that's not going to happen. But also the bowling, with Mitch Starc not quite being on target. He's he needs to be fired up and bowling very fast, I feel, to actually have that bowling attack gel. So it'd be interesting to see what they go with in the South Africa tour.
So you think Tim Payne should resume like his role as captain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see
I find
why not.
the commentary infuriating on it
Well-
all. For 3 years, he hasn't put a foot wrong. He had one really bad day behind the stumps and
Yep.
with his
was
mouth.
criticised,
Smashed, came out and did a voluntary press conference the next day. I think that in itself shows the growth over the last 3
Yep.
years in terms of owning up to your mistakes, which we initially failed to do with Cape Town. We briefly touched on that last
Yep.
episode. And now in terms of keeping, he's still the best gloveman in the country by the length of the Flemington Straight, I
Yep,
think.
definitely.
His batting average is second only to Adam Gilchrist, who redefined the role of a wicketkeeper batsman. And his leadership can't be questioned. So how on earth, after one perhaps below par series and one bad day in the past 3 years, are we now saying that GABBA test was probably his last?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So there's no more. We don't need to say any more on it now. I think it's just the comments that come out about that kind of stuff. It's just nitpicking, and we're seeing a lot of it these days. It's something that's why I probably wrote my little comments on Instagram.
Talk
because
us
it was
through those
just,
ones.
it's just nitpicking. Like,
So for context, it was the Josh Hazlewood little subplot. He had a fascinating spell and a duel with Chiteshwar Pujara. He runs in for his full run-up, and then Pujara pulls out really late, says there's a small butterfly in his way. Hazlewood gives him a big stare down, thinking, you could have told me before I made my run-up in this 30-degree Brisbane day. And the next ball, really well-directed bouncer, gets him right in the grill, and Hoff very softly says, "See that one?"
did you see that one? What's wrong with
He
that?
wasn't on the ground. He wasn't.
Exactly. What's wrong with it? Like, I'm sure majority of the people that are watching, the fans, are going to enjoy that. It's a contest between bat and ball. No one got hurt. Obviously, it goes back to the Philip Hughes incident, and look, it definitely affected a lot of people, and it has changed in a lot of ways. Everyone's checking in all the time, but I think it just needs to stop the nitpicking, because the game, it's still a sport. It's a sport, right? And there's competitiveness, and you're in the heat of the battle, and we've got to understand that there's 1,000 cameras that are on these players. There's the stump mics that are turned up. If we don't want to see or hear that stuff, then take away all the cameras, have only a couple of cameras on it, take the stump mics out, and then you won't hear anything. Simple,
and then
it'll be
about the access. So some of the comments on social media that made it to your Instagram story were around the lack of duty of care and Hazlewood showing no regard to the hit that he copped, and it was a pretty vicious blow. It was right on the cheek in the grill.
Yep.
Thank goodness for helmets, as the commentator said at the time. You feel Josh Hazlewood's response would have been different had Pujara been flawed?
100%.
Like Steve Smith in the Ashes.
100%.
And they all rushed to his care.
Yep.
I mean, then Jofra Archer was criticised for laughing shortly after, but Smith was horizontal.
But ultimately, you don't have to check on the batsman. That's not the job of the bowler. It's not the job.
It is good spirit of the game. If the player is absolutely flawed, we couldn't tell if Smith was conscious when he went down.
I remember hitting McLaren from South Africa years ago. Hit him in the side of the helmet. He sort of ducked into it was a short ball, but it didn't quite get up as much. And it was a fair whack to the side of his head, and it actually drew blood out of his ear. And I originally sort of went, well, I tried to bowl that ball. That's what I wanted to achieve, to bowl the bouncer. If he wasn't good enough to get out of the way, then that's not my issue. So he sort of wandered off to, not quite to square leg, but he went over off the pitch, and a couple of our boys went straight up to him to see if he was okay. So duty of care. On the inside for me, I looked at it and I went, I hope he's okay. I don't want him to be hurt. But I also didn't want to go up to him straight away and go, are you okay? Because, like I said, I'm trying to bowl a bouncer to intimidate. So it's such a tough one, because I'm not there to be the bully and not to be you're not trying to take people out of the game, but you're also there to
put on a fierce battle.
Yeah, you're a fast bowler. We were allowed to bowl 2 bouncers in the in the over. You can bowl a short ball, and look, I ended up going up to him before he was taken out because he actually had a bit of concussion, and I just sort of gave him a pat on the back, and then I actually sent Faf du Plessis, I think was captain at the time. I sent him a text just to make sure to see if he was okay, and passed on the message, and so that was done.
And that's the other thing that we probably, like myself, not being a former player like you, that I probably don't see what goes on behind closed doors, where at the end of a test match, you guys go into the change rooms, don't you, and all share a drink. And I guarantee Hazelwood went up to Pujara, would you?
100% he would have. He would have gone
and had a beer and are you all good?
Making sure that he was okay and saying how basically well done for doing what he did.
Toughing it out.
So he toughed it out, that's for sure. But yeah, people aren't going to agree with me, that's fine, but that's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, plenty to discuss. It's hard to remember a more topsy-turvy test match, let alone series. Former opener Mathew Hayden was there on the ground witnessing history being made. Welcome to The Fast and the Curious.
Yeah, thanks very much for having us.
If you had to sum that test match up in one word, what would it be?
Fighting from India's point of view, maybe one word, and inconsistent from Australia's point of view, and maybe even untypical from Australia's point of view as well. Who, very rarely get in Test match series, in particular in Australia, lose more than sort of 2 sessions in a row. Generally speaking, they're able to hold their session count. We saw Nicky Ponting doing his analysis of the Test match series on a session-by-session basis, and overall I think it was something like 27, 24 or 5, which represents how close this series was, but also I think from Australia's point of view, again, how they just really couldn't take their opportunities from one session, even if they won that session, turn it around to winning another session, which I think the great sides, they just get a momentum shift through their session count. They might lose the odd one here and there, but they'll go back-to-back sessions, and that's how they'll roll. And that's how, when you look at even the last 2 test matches in particular, the Sydney test match, having that ability, and Kip Payne got so much criticism about his captaincy, but in reality, you take 1 or even 2 of those 3 opportunities that were given, and it's a different result. And then the Brisbane test match, the Labuschagne and Matthew Wade partnership, it was a good partnership, and yet terrific. He got a good test match under it. Labuschagne with a little bit of luck, which everyone needs. But he left, I think, and that partnership left 100 runs at least out there. Now, we're not having this conversation about lost series. Even in just that one partnership where they'll win another session based on the fact they completely dominated and really secured a really good session count through their batting in the first innings, and that total all of a sudden goes to 450 plus, and it's a totally different story. And that's, if they can learn anything from it, Australia, I'm sure Justin Lang will take that kind of old cliche, Mitch, and which says never cut a sucker an even break, and he'll turn that into guys, well, we've been here before, now we're in a good position, but if you let it slip, then it's going to be real trouble, because you can see what happens even against the second string Indian side.
Yeah, Matt, it's Mitch here, and look, it's good to have you on today. Always love having chats with you and talking about the game, and it was obviously a tough loss for Australia in that series, and I think I saw a comment from JL about taking things for granted. I sort of had that feeling in that Brisbane test match. We heard some comments from Tim Payne in the last test in Sydney talking to Ashwin about can't wait to get you at Brisbane and those kind of things. Do you think maybe they just underestimated them a little bit going into that test match, thinking, well, we've got a pretty good record at Brisbane?
Yeah, well, as you know, Mitch, when it comes to the Brisbane test match, there is an air of confidence / arrogance that comes with that venue in particular. And look, there's a number of reasons for it. Firstly, it's the first test match typically in the summer.
Yep.
And what generally happens is a touring side, which has been kind of the way the program has worked for the century, is that they'll come over and play warm-up games, typically at one kind of more neutral venue, like a Canberra or, one of those types. And then they'll go over to the Wacker and they'll get pounded by, the great Western Australian attacks over the years. And then you pencil them in for the for the Brisbane Test match. Easily the most unique now ground in Australia and possibly even the world, which is Australia certainly has been taken over with drop-in wickets. And so that was how it rolled. You got a real level of confidence out of the fact that you were putting an opposition side into the most hostile environment there was possible in Australia, and you're looking to absolutely smash them. So, the stuff like comments can only be really discussed in the context of what we typically see as a very difficult game, and also respectfully, with what I was saying, it's relative to how it is that we perceive the GABBA to be. And so it begs the question really of the arrogance, I think, more of the administration that have changed the format of where sides tour and how they go about it, because, India should always play at Brisbane and the Wacker.
That should be, it should. Well, Brisbane should be the first test. I know we don't want it to be an excuse or anything like that. We're just saying that it is difficult for teams coming in to play Brisbane first up, and it's always been that little bit of an advantage, I guess, for the Australians. Also, we can't go away from the amount of grit that the Indian team had throughout this Test series with all the injuries they had. So coming to that last Test, I was just super impressed with the young guys, Gill and Shardul, who I've seen actually through IPL, and I was just super impressed with how they fought hard and showed so much grit.
Yeah, which you kind of expect. We always understand how difficult they are as a team to really be in a position when they're at home. But when they're abroad, and we've felt this, Mitch, over the years, when you go into a hostile environment like England, which you expect to just get it from all directions. The crowd, they just find a way to make it uncomfortable for us as tourists, and in India over the years as well, the hostile environments and the love of the game, and it's just like living in the bubble that I'm sure the current players are in right now. You can't get away from the game. It just is all over you everywhere you go. There's no respite. And when you talk typically to teams that come here, for the obvious reasons that we've just mentioned, the Australian environment is also very, even if it's just the conditions, are very foreign to most international sides. So it's just reinforcing what you're saying, Mitch, that they played incredibly tough cricket. I mean, Pujara is a great example of that, right?
Yeah.
He just got an absolute barrage. I mean, he got struck on the fingers twice, on the elbow. I thought he'd broken his whole arm off.
Yeah.
It was 14 hits in total, which is the most on record in a Test match.
Yeah.
He got a good one on the ribs as well.
I can remember having a meal, and I'm sorry, Mitch, that you weren't a part of this night. Brett Lee was a part of this night with Shane Watson, with Terry Tucker, and it was the first and only time that I met Terry, and we were sitting around his house in Sydney, and he was so kind and really, respectful of the current group, and there was Steve Waugh along with Justin Langer there as well. And we thought, well, what happened to Terry Tucker? We've always heard that, he's really gruff and opinionated and, not obnoxious, but, just really on point. And all of a sudden he starts telling this great story about luck. And he's talking about his father and the printing press down in Tasmania. And, well, we've all read the story and know the story. But this great role of luck in his life. And then he turned to Justin Langer and he said, son, you should know all about luck. Eyeballing him, and we all kind of gulped in our breath thinking, what's he going to say here? And he said, lucky they invented helmets, so you'd be effing dead. He said, why is it that you get hit on the head so much? And there he was just on.
Yeah.
And of course, we folded over, creased with laughter. And we were like, actually, well, yeah, Alfie, why do you get hit on the head so much?
It's probably something a modern day Will Bukowski sadly can relate to.
Yeah.
He obviously didn't play this match, and Marcus Harris came in his place. Haydos, our back page of the paper here at the West Australian on Friday, ahead of day one, was an article on you pleading Marcus Harris to play straight and not get funky and just show the respect at the Gabba, play the ball straight. About 2 hours after I read the back page, he was caught throwing his wicket away at square leg after scoring 5 runs. It meant both openers were back in the sheds, and we were at 2 for 17 on a really, really good batting surface. Ricky Ponting has made a few comments around the first innings total of 369 was never enough. You've said that you felt we left a lot of runs out there. Is that a key moment? I know we could narrow in on 10 from the match alone, let alone the series.
Yeah.
But was that a key moment to you that you just thought that is infuriating?
Yeah, there's no doubt that I think going right back to what I said at the start is that it's very difficult on any wicket, regardless of the conditions, to get in as a batsman. That's the most difficult phase. So when you look at the dismissals in the first innings of Warner and Harris, Warner didn't really get a chance to get in. He got caught on the crease with a good delivery. And Harris got a regulation ball that you saw in the second innings. He played nicely, and you deserve to get punished if you bowl that line at the Gabba. It doesn't matter if it's green or, in fact, in this case, it was a sort of second-day wicket starter. It was a very good wicket. And, you get a bit of a chance. You've seen a dozen balls or so, and you just got to keep building on that. So that was what you'd call, or cricketers call it, a soft dismissal. And I think that was kind of like the trend of the summer, really. There was not too many occasions. There was only, 100 scored, 200, scored with the Labuschagne 100 throughout the series. And when you look back in history, you go, well, actually, it's usually in winning series. There's usually 500 or 600 scored from various players across a 4 or 5 test match series. So the defining case is that the Australian batting lineup just they gave a sucker an even chance. They didn't finish or close one of the innings that they could have. And we all say as well, I never judge it until you batted on it, the opposition's batted on it. And then you could also argue, well, okay, it was probably a par score, but because India did a relatively good job at trying to get, even though their tail wagged, they got somewhere close to us.
Yep.
But the truth is, they shouldn't have been anywhere near us.
Yeah.
And so, I get dirty and a little bit frustrated for Justin Langer, who would have been saying exactly this, guys, we get starts, we turn 40s weighty into 50s, we turn hundreds, Marnus, into 150s. And until we, do that, don't come back here. I mean, I said on air when Marnus got out, and I was sitting right next to Alan Border, right? There was our mentor. And I would have walked in a different entrance to the change room. So there's no way I could have walked past Alan Border had I got out to a shot like that.
I was listening at that time when you said that as well. Like it was, and I felt the same way as well. Like, I mean, if I'm a player in that dressing room, I think as a teammate, you're like, hey, Marnus has played enough now. He's got enough experience. He's one of the best players in the team, best batsman. That was a situation where he should understand the game and what he needed to do in that time. It was a poor shot, poor selection. He really needed to knuckle down. And you're right, there was too many opportunities like that were missed by the Australians, and it definitely has an effect on the bowlers as well. That means that they're fighting a lot harder. There's been a lot of criticism again, I feel, with the bowlers and not getting 20 wickets, but also there hasn't been enough runs scored. Like like we're talking about. There's so many missed opportunities, but like we've said, though, it's still been an exciting Test series, and I had to eat my words a little bit. I thought it was going to be 3-1 to Australia.
Yeah.
But,
To be honest, I think a lot of people did, really. And I think the result, obviously, yesterday, dating back to 1988, nobody expected Australia to lose. I'd be so keen to get an insight what it was like being there and just what it was like from your point of view.
Yeah, look, I said right at the pitch report at the start of the day that, I'd take that wicket and roll it up and take it all around the world with me had I had the opportunity to do so. I thought it was a good wicket, and I thought largely, actually, the cracks, whilst they were maybe typically a bit bigger than what you see at the GABBA in usual circumstances, like they were all in zones that were kind of way out of play. In fact, maybe they were a bit of a distraction for the bowler. You could have looked at it like that psychologically as a batsman and gone, well, actually, if they're targeting those cracks, it means that I'm in the game here because they're really out of play.
Yeah.
So, look, I think the overwhelming sense for me was just how extremely calm Indian team batsmen were. They from ball one, surmounted just such a good and perfect run chase. And I remember playing a game against Victoria through the early 90s where Queensland was set a total of 300-odd against Victoria, and I ended up getting 200 in the innings, and it was a very sort of methodical approach. There wasn't any need to rush. As a batsman, you get plenty of opportunities to score throughout the day, and your scoring rate increases as well. So, when it kind of got to that equation where there was 10 overs left and they needed 50 runs, it was just never in doubt. But there's two poignant moments for me of that last day. The first was Ajinkya Rahane, who will never get mentioned in that run chase, and maybe he shouldn't. But he got 22 off 24 balls. He got out trying to play a really expansive shot over the top of slips. His attitude said it all at that moment. I knew India were going to go on to win that match. Had he have come out and looked defensive in any way, I would have thought, by gee, that just shows that they're not real. They don't really believe. But there was no one that came out that didn't believe.
Yeah.
And the second moment was at the end of the play, end of the day's play and post-match presentation, when Ajinkya Rahane, in spite of the elation that he must have been feeling for a Test match victory and a series victory of the Gordon Gavaskar Trophy, had the presence of mind to come back to the podium and then present Nathan Lyon on behalf of the team a signed shirt for his 100th Test match and in honour of his 399 wickets. So I just thought that moment there, under any other regime of leadership, would never have happened in the past.
Yeah.
And it goes to show you the quality and strength of the bilateral relationships that have been developed through the back of great competition over the years. The country's getting closer through the IPL and getting to understand each other a lot more. And also just cricket just being such a strong part of both of our communities. I just thought that was a beautiful moment. I've got to say, Matt, I stood up and straight away I was thinking it was going to be a glum presentation with the typical and stereotypical answers, but that brought a tear to my eye. I just love that stuff.
Yeah, a really classy moment. I think we can hardly fault Ajinkya Rahane, the way he's led the Indian side. There's been a few calls for him to stay on as captain, which is pretty massive given that...
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, given that King Kohli is sort of, the lord over there in India. But as somebody who has played 100 Test matches yourself, how special is it to reach that milestone? How significant would that match have been for Nathan Lyon? And how touching, I guess, is that recognition from the opposition?
Yeah, look, the whole event was brilliant for Nathan. I don't think he particularly bowled that well, in particular in the first innings. And I think he was sort of sorting himself out in the second innings as well. He bowled a very straight line. And he saw the moment that he did toss it wide, he ended up getting Shubman out for 91 with one that just didn't really sort of turn like he'd expected. So it was a flawed performance, but nothing to take away, as you mentioned, behind what has been a fantastic career. There's only been 30 players in history. 13 players in history that have done that. And I got to say, all of them pretty good blokes as well. So I think
there it is.
Yeah, I don't want to give him.
He doesn't mind pumping his own tyres up.
Yeah, the old mention of the 200 before.
There's one absolute wanker, but we won't.
313 Test wickets to his name. Yeah, I know the one.
Yeah, no. So for me, just they're just such good. They're just such great fighters. That group. When you look at the guys like Alan Border, for example, or Ian Healy, Steve Ward, Justin Langer. There's just a mixture of brilliance, but there's a mixture of great humility and similar kind of work ethics as well. Like when you play and do anything in career, forget cricket, and you are at it a long time, you've got a right to be called a master of the game or the master of your industry, of thought leadership, whatever it is that you do in life. It's fantastic that you stick at it a long time because you just get to see the workings of something from every perspective. And once that perspective then gives you insights into your own performance and you become, not like Nathan has in his own right, the best or considered the best off-spin bowler in Australia, certainly. But maybe, when you look at the other great off-spinners in the modern-day history, Mathew Muralitharan, or Daniel Vittori, Harbhajan Singh, Herath from Sri Lanka. That's right. Like there's a lot of those guys. They bowled doosers as well and other deliveries. But Nathan has got in his arsenal a very good off spinner, a good over spinner, a half decent arm ball, and a whole lot of guts and courage. And he's used those things to his advantage over many years and his, history doesn't lie. He's our greatest wicket taker, off spinner bowler, and I think our third, isn't it, of all time. So fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Last one from me, Haydos. Somebody you played a lot of cricket with, Justin Langer, head coach of the Australian team. Have you reached out to him since yesterday? Because after the 18-19 series loss, where Australia won the first test at the GABBA, he said, I was having nightmares at the thought of being the first team to break that winning streak at the GABBA. And that was obviously a team that was missing Steve Smith and David Warner. Very different, as we've discussed, finishing at the GABBA, and the whole series was different in its own right. But is there anything you can say to JL to sort of reach out to him, or any advice or anything to soften the blow of what he's probably feeling today?
Yeah, look, unlikely. I mean, how do we know?
What's that chuckle for?
Well, just because we've all been in positions that aren't good. There's not really. There's a period of mourning. I mean, Mitch, you and I went through it a number of times through our careers, where both individually or as a team, where things just don't work, and you can't get it back, right? I suppose for JL, he'll look at it and go, well, here's a good opportunity for his team to learn a bit more about their game, and to also look in the mirror a little bit as well and front up to some of the challenges which weren't quite met from an Australian point of view. They didn't have to do much. The game of cricket is a fickle one. They didn't have to do much better in every session in order for there to be a different result. So they should look with optimism as to what wasn't done and how it is that potentially they could just do things a fraction better without trying to necessarily scalp some of the superstars. It's a time for calm heads and clear vision. And the vision that hasn't been addressed is ultimately the half chances or the half performances in runs or even just little things like, I was thinking just then, Mitchell Stark, charging in on the last over of the fourth day, and all of a sudden finding a reason to be not 100% You know, the crease, he slipped on the crease that first ball, and it straight away buckled with the kind of thought of, gee, can I do this? You could just see the pain in his eyes, and as a batsman, you're going, oh, you beauty. You know, the premium left arm strike bowler has got a bee in his bonnet, and I can be all over him here and make that worse. That's what you're thinking as a batter. So you're reading body language.
Yeah.
Yeah, a tough one for...
Just little things. But they mean a lot in the end when it comes to results.
Yeah, a tough one for Starkey to swallow for the whole team as well. They haven't got long before they bounce back, probably against South Africa as soon as next month. It's been an incredible series, and it's been wonderful to get your thoughts on it. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. We could talk for 15 days about this. So
Exactly.
Thanks,
my pleasure, guys.
Good to hear from you, mate.
Yeah, it's been such a massive week in cricket, so much to talk about. Everyone is fired up, so we thought we better bring in some good to the world after all of this anger. We're going to reward our audience for listening to the rants today. We've got a brand new Kookaburra, as I mentioned before. We're going to give it away. All you have to do is enter. Head to the win page on Perth Now to enter. What you need to do is put in the code word. Mitch, what should the code word be?
Well, with everything that's been going on in this test series, this test match, Pujara, Hazelwood, I think Bodyline is probably an appropriate...
Bodyline.
Yeah. That's
Code word to win the signed Mitchell Johnson cricket ball is Bodyline. I think Pujara is probably feeling a bit sore today, do you think?
I reckon. But I think he'd be pretty happy at the same time.
Probably doesn't mind.
With this as well, am I bowling that ball to the person who wins it just to give him...
No, because then you would have to go into rehab for 6 months to fix the stress factors in your back. You've told us you took 6 months to recover from the bushfire game you played in. That was 11 months ago.
Yeah, I know. I've got a game coming up, actually.
Oh, whereabouts?
Well, it's my brother-in-law's Australia Day match that he plays every year with all his mates. So, yeah.
You've got a gig.
I've got a gig. I've got to get warmed up.
Have you been training?
Maybe I can... No.
Oh, here we go. The arrogance. Too good for this.
Yep. Anyway, back to the code word again.
Yeah, code word Bodyline. Head to the win page on Perth Now to enter. We'll try to find out that venue for the Australia Day match so we can all come and watch, maybe taunt you from the sidelines. Bowls to the left, bowls to the right. All right, so Mitch, some questions I have for you this week. I think because as we've heard Mathew Hayden, he loves to talk. We've been chatting for a while. We probably need to wrap things up.
Yep.
I'm going to give you a time limit. You've got 10 seconds to answer each of these questions because I said to Haydos, how would you describe it in one word? And he did it in about 4,000. So because of that, you've got a 10-second time limit. Number one, who captains Australia after Tim Payne and when do they start their tenure?
Has the countdown started yet?
Yeah, you've lost 4 seconds.
Head still.
He's not in the best 11.
Okay, Cummins.
Cummins when?
Next available time.
Huge.
Definitely not next test series, no.
Okay, not against South Africa in 20 days. Okay. If anyone, who gets dropped from the GABBA 11 for the first South Africa test?
Wade and maybe Stark.
Good answer. Will Australia go with no left armour for a few years when Mitchell Stark's time is up, or is there a successor ready now?
Go with the best next option.
Yep.
Whoever that is. I like Pattinson or Riley Meredith.
Yep. Time's up. Mathew Wade, last one. South Africa or New Zealand?
He's Australian.
Okay, let me restate because you've chosen to miss the point. Is Mathew Wade on the plane to South Africa for the Test series or on the plane to New Zealand for the White Ball series?
White Ball series.
You flog. Okay. Yeah, okay, so are you saying that because you think that's where he should go or because you want Travis Head back in the 11?
No, I just think that's where he's strongest. That's where he's best.
Yep.
In the shorter form.
Not good news for the Scorchers, though. They've just announced what players are being released back into the Big Bash. Cameron Green is going to take a well-deserved rest. He won't be playing for the Scorchers. And Mathew Wade and Tim Payne will be available for Friday's match for Hobart against the Scorchers. So that's good for Hobart and probably bad timing for the Scorchers.
Yeah, but you just have to look at it from a Scorchers point of view and just keep playing the brand of cricket they're playing at the moment. And it's good stuff. So stick to their strengths and don't worry about who they're coming up against. They'll have their plans and maybe they'll be a bit weary as well. Tim Payne might not be quite there with
To
mentally.
be fair, he might not play, as in they've announced which, not in the 11. No, they've announced which players are going to rest. So Nathan Lyon is going to skip, Mitchell Starc is off for scans, and Greenie is being rested as well. But obviously Payne has said he's put his hand up and he's happy to, but maybe once it comes around, he might, as soon as all of the adrenaline stops today or tomorrow, he might crash and realise, I could benefit from a few more days.
A bit of a break, possibly. I mean, it'd be pretty hard for him to come in as well and take McDermott, who's been keeping really well, and he's another
he looks
young
bound
guy that's
for perhaps New Zealand.
Yeah, definitely.
12 T20
Batting
internationals to his name. Probably hasn't had the best run at it, given he had that terrible sort of 6-month period where he ran himself out 5 times in a row.
Yeah.
But he's in absolutely red hot form.
No, I like the look of him, and there's definitely opportunities coming up with a couple of squads going to be announced shortly. So that 6 he hit the other night, or one of the big one.
McAndrew, the
oh
big one.
My goodness,
Enormous.
That was huge.
Yeah, that went to another galaxy into next week. Mitch, time to make the most of our Pick 11 teams. I wanted to talk to you about the future of the Big Bash League, because the great Brian Lara set Twitter alight the other night. He was picking his best 11 under 23, and he said, 23 and under. Mm-hmm. He said the talent is thin in Australian cricket, and a few people online, might surprise you, a few people on Twitter had an opinion. And even it caught the eye of Melbourne Stars general manager Nick Cummins, who he used to be the GM at the Sydney Thunder, so he's got his finger on the pulse and is across quite a few teams. He posted a list of the players who are 23 and under, and I won't bore you with all of them, but I want to name a couple. Cameron Green, Aaron Hardy, Wes Agar, Max Bryant of the Heat, Jack Prestwidge, Will Bukowski, Test debutant, Jake Fraser McGurk, Mackenzie Harvey, both from the Renegades, and Will Sutherland. Lance Morris and Josh Philippi, proud Scarborough boys. Tanvir Sanger, Oliver Davies, Lloyd Pope, Corey Rocacholi, and more. All of those ones I've just mentioned are 23 or under. Would you say the future of, you pick 11 bargain buyers and Australian cricket, do you think it's thin or do you think it's exciting?
Oh, it's definitely exciting. I'm not sure in what context or what he was thinking when he named that team, or not saying
he
that.
also perhaps meant that there maybe needed a few more years to develop before we were seeing the best of them.
Oh, definitely. And I think he's just judging from what he's seeing in the Big Bash as well. But yeah, talent-wise, it's pretty bloody good, I would have thought. All the names that you just read out there. And
Concise summary.
A lot of those young guys are performing as well and are exciting to watch. So it just comes down to playing more games, getting more experience, and hopefully, I think we have got the talent to back up the guys that are playing for Australia now, and we're seeing some of these guys coming through in the shorter forms of the game because they are being split up, and there's more opportunities at the moment with COVID, with bigger squads and things like that. So that's only going to be good for the Australian cricket. These young guys that are getting those opportunities. So I'm excited. I think there's plenty there. If we're going to start pointing at talent, I think we've still got more talent than the West Indies under 23s. Maybe he can name those.
Whack! I like it.
No disrespect, but
Don't backpedal.
No, look, he's entitled to that opinion as well because he's played the game. He knows and can see what's around. So that's obviously what he thinks, and he's qualified enough to be able to make those calls.
He's
but
somewhat respected, I guess.
I'd say so, yeah. I'd say so.
Yeah, one of the greats of the game. Now, we have been brought to you by Tab Touch today, as always. Make the most of summer. Gamble responsibly. For gamblers' help, call 1-800-858-858. Mitch, thank you very much for joining us once again today. Normally, you leave us on a peach. I think, have you probably given us all of your rants and all of your thoughts so far? I don't think we can open up another can of worms.
No, but there's not much going on now. You were telling me about AJ and how he was bragging about him bowling 151 the other night. We do need the proof. And just because you bowl one ball at 151 doesn't mean you're a quick bowler. Where's your consistency?
Whack. Okay, I will pass that feedback on because There is a strong debate between him and his Scarborough teammate, Josh Philippi, and Flip said, if you bowl over 150, I'll shave my head. So hopefully an impending Australia debut for Josh Philippi in New Zealand, and he might be doing so without much hair on his head.
That'd be interesting.
Watch
I
this
think he's a bit
space.
of a pretty boy.
Yeah, I don't think he would do it.
I don't think he'd do it. Well, the thing is with the fast bowling thing as well, when Mitch Marsh actually came into the Australian team, and I remember we were in on a tour in England, and we go on the bus. We've got a bus driver, Goodwin's Popeye, who looks after us there, and the fast bowlers were always at the back. So to be in that group, you have to bowl over a certain pace and be consistent. And Mitch Marsh at the time, the cartel, and Mitch Marsh bowled a couple around 140 and was trying to get to the back of the bus, and I denied him. I said, you have to do it more consistently. So it's a bit like with AJ. If he becomes more consistent bowling at a fast pace, then you might be called a fast bowler.
I think I listened to a press conference recently after everybody was talking about his pace, and he said, I might be quicker than Mitchell Johnson now. Is there any parting words? Because we were about to go.
I think my slower ball's quicker than him, like his fast ball.
I think that's all we've got time for. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you next week.
You've been listening to The Fast and the Curious with Mitchell Johnson and Bonnie Rayner. Subscribe for weekly pods over the summer of cricket, and remember to send in your questions to Mitch before the next episode.